Hi and welcome to Hospitality Huddles. I'm Scot Turner, and in each episode we're going to be uncovering the industry's biggest challenges and serving up the solutions to help overcome them. This week, I think we've had the best episode yet. I was joined by Jason, Jules and Kieron, and I can't believe how many takeaways came from the hour. It's definitely time now to pause the show, grab a pen and some paper and get ready to make notes. So how do you disrupt the way you're doing your training? Authenticity, content, speed, micro-learning is all my key takeaways. And I genuinely came into this thinking that we needed to overhaul training in the industry. But actually what we just need to realise is the power of our iPhones. So let's get into the episode so you can learn all about these points. But before we do, if you like this and the other episodes, one of the best ways to support us is to hit that subscribe button and leave a review. It's only going to take a couple of minutes and it really does help make a difference and spread the message to even more people. So let's get on with today's episode, and as always, all that's left to say is welcome to Hospitality Huddles, where hospitality meets conversation, one huddle at a time. Hi there, good evening and good morning. If you're listening, thank you for joining us. A really interesting topic tonight, and it comes from an instance that I had with a client a few weeks ago, and I was sat in the restaurant and I was watching some training being carried out, and I looked at it and I just saw the faces on all the people who were attending, and they all looked blank. And when I was trying to understand why, I came to the conclusion that it was more about how we were starting to deliver training to the modern workforce in the workplace, and not necessarily about how the workforce were engaging with the content. So I looked through my phone book and found the three best people that I could think of to come on and have a really engaging conversation about how we can shake up training in the industry. And they weren't available, so I asked Jason, Kieron and Julia to come as well. And there we go. So I want to kick off every Wednesday and Friday. I attend the Digital Hospitality Room. Jason also comes on that room as well, with some great people on there: Sean Walchef, Troy Hooper, Derek Smith. And we always start the show by 60 seconds to say who we are, what we do, and there's no better way to start this one as well. So Jason, as the man of experience in this one, I'm going to come straight to you first.
Jason Berkowitz, great intro, thank you. I'll always be your number two pick, number two round. And longtime restaurant operator, started at Burger King in 14 and worked my way all the way through, and had the pleasure of scaling multiple different brands. And where I would come in is not only in opening certain independent mom and pop shops, which is my heart and soul and love. If you had a concept that was working and there was a line around the door, I would come in and help you put infrastructure and systems into place so that you could scale that, infuse capital into this thing, get ready to grow, but make sure that you're not losing the secret sauce. And the concepts that I was most attracted to was, obviously the secret sauce was the flavor, but there was a vibe, a bite, and a culture. And so I loved the infrastructure to put in place to grow that culture. 4 years ago, I started Arrow Up Training, an online training company, and we first tackled compliance. And as Scott likes to say, compliance made easy, which is awesome. And we made it cool and sexy. And the idea was, let's create courses in compliance that actually speak the language of our industry. Anti-harassment training was becoming a mandatory course. Then we moved to safety. Then we moved into leadership development, because at the end of the day, leaders really drive the results. And young supervisors specifically are your glue between the expectation of the company and the execution, what you really get. And so we bottled all of that up together because it all exists. It all works together. Do I feel safe? Do I feel heard? Do I understand what my goals and focus is? And that in turn leads us to today, where Arrow Up Training makes compliance easy and helps restaurants build safer and stronger teams through safety, compliance, and leadership development. There's my long-tailed version to kind of tie in a little bit of what I'm excited we're going to talk about today.
Fantastic. And Jules, do you want to take 60 seconds?
Thank you, Scott. And thanks so much for having us on this panel this evening. Super excited to talk a bit more about Blend and what we're doing. I'm Jules, I'm co-founder and I'm COO of Blend. We are an early stage startup, along with my co-founders, Jonah and Helen. We've recently just founded Blend at the beginning of the year. Our whole goal is to save business owners time and money when they're onboarding and they're training deskless workers. So we're trying to innovate in this space. And the way that you can kind of think about it is like a TikTok meets workplace training, but for the deskless workforce. So by deskless, you guys know what we mean, but for the audience, this is 80% of the world's global working population that typically don't work at a desk. They are frontline workers, they are transient workers, typically in hospitality and retail. And this is a really huge problem, training this workforce. It's really time consuming, really costly. We're building in this space, we're starting in the hospitality industry because of the huge why now, specifically within the UK market since COVID and Brexit. Over 200,000 skilled workers have left the industry for good, and UK hospitality has been left in a bit of a crisis. So we are building Blend. So Blend is a mobile and video first micro-learning platform. And it allows managers to basically train their workforce faster through using engaging user-generated content in a sort of short-form video format, also allowing our customers to track the data and get insights on their employees, all optimized for a very mobile-first, younger, more diverse workforce that are of different ages, ethnicities, and also different neurodiversities. So really trying to come at training from an angle that encompasses different learning styles, different generations, and this new trend of moving towards very much mobile-first. And yeah, that's Blend.
Perfect, thank you. And Kieron, last but not least.
Like Jason, a long-time career in operations, and I spent some time in casual dining, in live venues, various different things, to be fair, 25 years, if I'm honest, and I adored it. And I kind of, the true moment of joy for me was when I realized that I wasn't a business manager, I was a people developer, and my responsibility was to take every opportunity possible, was to help people shine, help them become the favorite version of themselves, and really find the joy in what they do, and inspire them to do that, was a simple answer. So spent 25 years doing that. Realized that actually I've got the knees of a 90-year-old now, and whilst I miss operations, my knees are made of dust, and that's not great. So I've been in the ecosystem for about probably another 10 years now, and some time through as a consultant in smaller businesses, going out there and training and developing people through leadership, which I think is such a kind of a key subject. And I think looking at the different ways in which we can deliver that training and inspire those people is so key. You know, the kind of the one size fits all answer has never been the thing to get it done. So you've got to look to make it important for the individual. And now I spend my days with Otolo, and that kind of I'm all on brand today. And we are built to help you retain your people within hospitality, because I genuinely think that the people in this industry are the absolute key resource that we have in this industry. And the hordes are coming over the hills, coming for our people. You know, they're coming to try and take them away from us. You know, anybody in hospitality who thinks they're fighting the restaurant on the corner, the bar down the street for their people, they're not. We should be stepping up and battling against Amazon, against the NHS, against retail. All of those people want our people because they're incredibly well trained, incredibly passionate people, and they're built to deliver amazing experiences. So Otolo will help you retain those people. We do that through developing training, delivering training, and most importantly, mentoring. I think for me, it's such a key thing. If I would have had a great mentor when I was a 21-year-old cretin who was learning his way and kind of finding his feet, my career would have escalated and been accelerated. And I think if we can deliver that for as many people as possible right now, all day long, that's what we're here to do. Boom.
Fantastic. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. And Kieron, I'll come straight to you on the next question. Based on my intro, based on what you see through Otolo, does the industry need shaking up when it comes to training? Do we train people properly? Is there room to improve, or do we need an overhaul?
Do you know, I was talking about this with my wife. You know, she is a much brighter person than me and is much smarter in the L&D world. And I kind of said, what do you think we need to do? What needs to be better? And she said, everything needs to be better. We need to stop doing things the same old way. We need to stop looking at life through the lens of kind of when I was young and when we used to do this and we'd always done that. That doesn't work anymore. People want information delivered differently, and we have to find a way of being able to do that, whether that is through kind of the in-person training sessions. The days, like you said at the start, of kind of just delivering through PowerPoint, I still see people doing that. I sat in a session a couple of weeks ago, and there was I think it was about 33,000 words on one slide, and I just felt sad looking at it. I just think we've got to think about how we're going to get creative with this and how we're actually going to engage and inspire these people, because the world has changed, the expectation has changed, and if we as industry leaders are not looking about how we engage with those people, with the younger people coming through. But again, more importantly, it's not just about kind of, we all get caught up on Gen Z and how do we kind of connect with those guys. Within industry, you know, we're looking at a real cross section of people from different ages. So what we're doing, the way we're delivering training, has got to be done in a way that suits as many of those people as we possibly can. So does it need to change? Yes. The simple changes, let's just be better.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And Jason, from what you see with your clients, what does need to change, and where are the gaps that people are currently missing that is an opportunity?
I think, you know, there's something to be said about bottling up, and at least some people still need to begin, right? If they're using, let's say, the compliance stuff and not the other training, even getting it down on paper, even beginning to communicate, we still have to get people started with that to then convert over. So it depends on where they are in their cycle. What's interesting is I was ready to come out 4 years ago and say, one-on-one training for everybody. We're going to build this whole ecosystem. Kind of, we're blending, where we're going, and people are, you know, different tech, and people are sort of coming around, especially with more of a digital adoption. But I knew they weren't going to buy it at that time 4 or 5 years ago, and so we started with compliance because it was a need. And that was sort of a gateway in to say, okay, you need this. This is what's happening. Because they put out the fires in front of them and they don't think about planning ahead. And so risk was the immediate risk and concern, but how are you aggregating the risk of having sort of the turnover that's going on and people, you know, the loss of sales, all the problems that you have from not having solid training. So kind of jumping in that, right, pre-planting that seed and saying, some people are it's exciting to watch. It's starting to shift. And I think there's a real change that's starting to happen. And the conversation's starting to move where people are understanding that they have to modernize and they have to invest and they have to do this. So for me, what I'm seeing is two things. One, they're looking for more solutions than the one that we've been providing in a baseline and in micro solutions. And we'll talk into that a little bit more. And secondly, what I like is we're rolling our courses out through other enterprise learning management systems, and to watch them say, we're not going to take the off-the-shelf content that came from our HR providers that was vanilla and awful for like anti-harassment or things like that. We're going to invest a little bit more and get somebody that actually brings a voice and a style and a culture that's talking to our community. And this is the restaurant group talking. That's cool. So I like to see them investing in the content that's also going through these tools on an enterprise level.
Yeah, fantastic. And there's some great subjects to talk about later as well. Jules, from your side, you've talked about deskless learning, TikTok, some of these platforms and phrases. What are you seeing as the opportunity to disrupt the market? Because there's obviously something that you've seen there in creating Blend that can change the way we train people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I completely agree with both of you guys and what you've just mentioned, obviously training in the hospitality industry, particularly right now, it's outdated. It's not fit for this modern workforce. It doesn't keep up with sort of the pace of change and shifting consumer expectations and advancements in technology. So we really do have to adapt the way that we are training people. And again, gone are the days where you can just say, you know, go and sit in the corner for 5 hours and read this textbook and then you're trained. Like, you have to adapt to different learning styles. And like, yes, there is some people that still like sitting in the corner and reading their textbooks, and there are some people like that prefer the one-on-one training, but we're blend and we believe in this blended learning approach. So what we're really sort of driving home is we want this hybrid approach where you can save the time training by having, you know, this consistent training in short form video and sharing that, but we also want to have that in-person touch. But it just frees up more time for more in-person training if someone isn't repetitively training people, and then, you know, there's a high turnover, so they leave the next day. So I think a few key areas that we're looking at, and, you know, through hundreds and almost thousands of customer interviews, employee interviews and customer interviews, is that personalization is really key. We're really finding that people are, you know, really engaged with something, that whether it's just the restaurant group, right, whether the training is personalized for that specific chain of restaurants, or whether it's specifically personalized for their age, or whether, you know, the language is, maybe they're a non-native English speaker and it's personalized towards their language. We're looking at trends in sort of feedback. People want to give their feedback. People want to hear that there's a bottom-up approach rather than just a top-down approach to training. People want to say, you know, this is how I'm learning and I didn't understand that, and I think we could do this, and you know, feedback to each other and help each other out with different training practices. And I think people are really really enjoying that. And obviously relevant and engaging content. So it has to be relevant. It has to be, you know, obviously aligned with your role and what you're supposed to be doing in that company, but it also has to be engaging. So what we're really focusing on at Blend is, how do we make it engaging, and how do we get people to engage with it? Because again, it's actually a bit of a, you know, it's a behavior change here, training people in this style, because, you know, again, we've spoken to so many employees and, you know, industry, you know, veterans, and they said, you know, this is the way that it's always been, and, you know, this is what we're used to. But it's a behavior change to say, you know, we've got this new way of learning, and it's more aligned with this modern generation, but we have to get people over the line of saying, you know, a bit of hand holding, saying this will help you, it will make your lives a lot easier, it will save you money, but also it's going to obviously engage your employees better. And obviously from the employee side, we want them to see that it's going to help them. So quite a few things that we're seeing coming up. But yeah, specifically feedback, personalization and relevant, engaging content is what we're sort of picking out for the future.
Yeah, and you've just said one of my most hated phrases in hospitality, the way we've always done it, because I think sometimes that is one of the things that causes people to keep looking back and not forward, and innovating and continually building value. And Kieron, when you're putting these together with Otolo and you're looking at leadership and you're looking at development, what are those things that you can do to bring in personalization and offer people choice, look at how you can find gaps where their leadership styles are, and implement that into a tangible action to deliver a great session?
I think the starting point, which can be quite a challenging one, is to kind of put your ego to one side, because you don't have all of the answers. And the idea that you're going to walk into somebody else's organization and tell them what they need, that's going to make their organization better, I just think is insane. I mean, I met a guy last week who he was a consultant. He would go in and he said the words, I go in and tell you what will make your business better. And if you do exactly as I say, it will be amazing. If you don't, your business will close. And I was like, man, that level of certainty. I haven't had that level of certainty over anything other than the moment when I said I do. That was the only moment of such certainty in my life. But this guy's like 29, 30 years of age, and he's like, I will make your business better without asking any questions, without going and engaging and understanding what is going on in that business. What does that business need? What do these people need? And I think Jules nailed it there with that kind of making it relevant, kind of, I can come in and tell you the various different things, kind of, there are models out there left, right, and center, and we've all got access to them, and we all read and we all share ideas, and we've all got the kind of key ones that we'll go back to again and again and again because they're the ones that we know have been successful. For me, kind of David Marquette's work on Turn the Ship Around, just absolutely, when I read that book for the first time, I was like, boom, David's in my head. This is how I operate, pushing authority to information. I feel like actually we should be friends. We're not friends yet. We will be by the time I've done at some point in life, but we will get there. So we've all got these models that we go to, but the idea that that's going to be the one, and me being able to walk into somebody and say, right, you need radical candor in your business. You need impactful leading in your business. You need accountability in your business. I don't know that. I've got some good experience. I can work out. I can ask the questions that are going to give me the information to tell me what these people need in their business. But I've got to be willing to listen. So my somewhat raging ego has to get a little pin popped in it and just put to a side for one moment. And I've just got to realize that I don't know it all. So please tell me, help me understand what's going on in your business. So for me, one of the simple parts of what we do is we'll do a discovery day where we'll go and spend half a day and we'll speak to leaders within the business about what they're looking for, what they want to achieve. But then more importantly, we'll go and speak to people within the business, the team members, and say, right, what are you aiming to achieve from this? What are your objectives in life? Because I think there's that, somebody said it on a conversation I was in a couple of weeks ago, that kind of progression and development don't have to be in the same thing, is the simple answer. Every person in your business deserves development, but not every single person in your business wants progression. So we've got to be really fair about that because everybody has that right. The only way you work out which ones want those two things is by going and talking to them. I think back to a boy who used to work in one of the restaurants I was in, and he'd had 3 GMs before I went in and took over, and every one of those GMs had tried to make him a leader, a manager in that business because he was incredible. He knew what he was doing. He knew every single part of what was happening in that business. He was the go-to guy. He was the one that would buddy. He was the one that would teach, train. Everybody put this pressure on him, and every single time he'd fight back, and to the point where he was like, I walked through the door and said, just to be clear, if you ask me to be a manager, I'll leave. And I was like, okay, dude, well, let's have a cup of tea and we'll kind of work out what's going on here. This guy, his focus was his family. He wanted kids, and it was a tough process for him, but he wanted kids and he was putting all his energy into that. He was really happy every day to deliver and share his feedback and share his knowledge, but he didn't want to progress. So we've got to work out what is key to the people within that business. And the only way you do that is by popping that ego in a little corner, leaving it to itself, and then going and asking some questions, listening to the answers, and then really moving forward with it and just paying attention.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And Jules, when we did the last panel talk, we had Ellie on from White Rabbit Group, and she was saying that at times they find it really hard to personalize employee experience because of the sheer volume of employees they have. But I would come back and say, if you can offer enough choice, does that then open the opportunity for the employee to personalize that experience? And if so, how important is it that that becomes a strategy for what you do around training moving forwards?
I think going off what Kieron just mentioned in terms of having discovery days and sort of really understanding your employees, like we do the same at Blend in terms of we go and sit in the restaurants and physically watch employees, whether it's front of house or back of house, using our platform to understand where they're tripping up, what's going right, what's going wrong, kind of thing. And again, you've hit the nail on the head with like, we try to help our customers build their best teams faster. So whether that's understanding an employee wants to progress throughout this business and end up sort of head of ops in a head of like management role, or whether they want to become, a mixologist or, the head of the bar, or whether they have those aspirations is something we try and find out at an early stage as well. And obviously understanding, as Kieron mentioned as well, is whether this person is just coming here for a short time to just earn a bit of cash on the side, or, go home a bit of the family. Maybe it's a second job. Maybe it's just something that's completely fine. That's absolutely great. But what we try to understand is who wants to progress, as you mentioned as well, Kieron, who wants to progress, and how can we sort of shift resources accordingly. So if someone is just happy doing their own thing within, personalization on the platform, you won't really need to necessarily like incentivize them to get things to do new courses. Whereas like within Blend, we'll have the opportunity in the future to sort of upskill yourself by choosing other different types of courses. Maybe there's some managerial courses that if you do a few courses, it shows to your managers that you're taking these active steps to become a manager. So it can be personalized in terms of their career goals, but obviously personalized as well into whether, something that we're looking into, but again, won't say too much on it now because we're in a stage of exploration, is how we can really help people learn their own way. So that is the big part of personalization here. So that's us exploring if you have ADHD. My co-founder Jonah is dyslexic, and he's also colorblind. He sees things differently and people interpret things differently. So we want to explore how you can adapt somebody's profile depending on, could you click, I'm colorblind, or could you click I've got ADHD. How can we explore actual ways that help people learn their own way? That's literally our catchphrase, is how to help you to learn your own way. So we're exploring different ways into, the right way to research this. And it's something we will have hopefully on the platform in the future. But yeah, as again, just really understanding who the employee is, their career pathway, if they want to stay within that business, or, if they just want to stay and look after their family, that's absolutely fine. But how can we support each employee in however they would like to sort of show up at that business, and make sure that they're supported in whichever way they want to show up.
I really like that. And I think a lot of people listening, that might make their ears prick up, because it certainly did with me. Because when I thought about choice and offering people ways to benefit from training, it was very much around they get to pick soft skills that they might want to learn, other trades that they might want to learn. I never thought of it in the way of how can you make it engaging for people who don't find it easy to learn as well. And that is super powerful, especially in an industry where we want those people coming into the industry because there's other skills they can apply that they can excel. And I think that's going to make a lot of people think really differently about training. Jason, I was with Chris Hall from the Burnt Chef Project a few weeks ago, and he was taking me through a scientific survey that they'd done with a restaurant group in London. And what it found as it was going through was that the level of role in the organization that was most likely to suffer from burnout was mid-level management. So general managers, assistant managers, supervisors. And I was surprised by that, because I thought it would be more the lower management, the lower level teams, where we were putting them under pressure, being short-staffed, extending station sizes, etc. How important is it that we teach some of those soft skills to some of that mid-level management? And I think I saw on LinkedIn a great video that you posted about kind of supervisory roles and how can better support them. But why did you choose to focus on mid-level management? Because the science would suggest that that's backed up by needing to really focus on those guys.
It's great. I love to be ahead of the curve of the data. And it's from really myself growing up. And then when I was showing up on time and asked to take the next level, you're both, Scott, you're great, you're moderating incredible, but to Kieron and to Julia, you're dropping amazing bombs. And I love being a part of a conversation in a panel that I'm sitting here writing this all down and absorbing, and going back then to one of the points of progression and development isn't the same thing necessarily. And I remember being asked, because I was responsible and engaging with people and doing this, I would continually be asked to take the next step. And eventually I did when I was younger, and didn't later in life to a different position, depending on where I was. And I remembered how awkward it was that all of a sudden I was given the keys and the ability to void food, but now I'm managing the people that I've been friends with and doing things. And how do I communicate to them? And how do I have this awkward conversation? How do I let them know that, okay, man, I know we both were out partying last night, but I made it on time, right? And so the awkwardness in the conversations. And I then realized with myself, and this is a long time ago, the influence that I had on the operations, on motivating everybody, that I was on the front lines with them. How were we moving? What was the mood? Feeling what was going on, shifting the music to alter the vibe a little bit, and absolutely being able to understand the ecosystem and the pH balance that was going on, and being able to curate and work with it and drive it as a young leader. And in that, I felt the hard days where the responsibility was too heavy. Some days that I absolutely loved it, that I had this much responsibility at so young. And fortunately, had great teachers growing up and grew up in a business of hospitality and had some good leaders and missed out a lot. But I also was in school for psychology. So I loved applying those ideas to it. And, you know, people would say, oh, well, you have a degree in psychology that helps, you know, management. And maybe it's just that I paid attention to human beings and what was going on. And that just armed me with care and empathy, which is far better than any schooling is going to give you if you don't care about that. And so all of that, I realized the influence that I had on, so what am I influencing at literally the supervisory level? Are people quitting? That's 70% turnover, right? Is based on management. If I have a bad mood and I come in, I'm going to affect the line and who's with me, no matter if I'm back of house or front. Are they health and safety? Are they taking the time to throw the rag back in the sanitizer bucket? Am I responding inappropriately and therefore holding the responsibility and the liability of the company? Supervisors are the difference between, the bridge between the expectation and the execution, which I kind of said at the top. And in that, I realized how much of an opportunity there was to focus on the soft skills, especially coming out of the pandemic. And a lot of this came naturally, where we were asked by the city of Santa Monica in Los Angeles, California, how to help them with de-escalation training, because during the pandemic, people were coming in and screaming at these 18-year-olds at the front, asking people to wear a mask. And they didn't know how to respond. So we went in and we did de-escalation training. But in fact, we made an empathy course where we actually taught them, we got everybody's point of view, put it in the videos, put it in the courses, and we got everyone to start to see the other side of it. And then how do you communicate? Well, that led to communication, and all this naturally came together, where I was like, son of a bitch, this is a lot of this stuff is what we deal with anyways. Dial down the anger and aggression a little bit, but we're dealing with a lot of this. And that then naturally turned into, well, okay, let's train them responsibly, but let's also empower them with communication and soft skills and all of this that came together. And that's, you know, that is a development path. So to me, it was going back to the bottom up approach is how do you start at the baseline? Well, everybody should have a moment to make sure we're on the same page of soft skills. Let's really focus on those supervisors. Let's empower them. Great. Now we can move up to what's the basic of accounting. Now we can move up to these areas. So it's really the most important piece of the human resources are the humans, and it's how we communicate and work with each other.
I was having a really interesting conversation today about this over coffee. We were talking about delegation within operations, and quite often kind of general managers and assistant managers, they'll use delegation as being an outcome, basically. So somebody's got to a new position in their role. They've got that new gold badge that says that they're a supervisor or an assistant or a GM, and they get something, they get a task delegated to them. That's the standard. And I find that really odd, because my career was built on delegation, to be honest with you. And some people would call it incredibly lazy. I'd call it creative, but still. But everybody was being delegated tasks and responsibilities ahead of their role, particularly if they were people who I was looking at and thinking, you've got, I see you as an opportunity for progression. So I would delegate a responsibility to somebody, teach them it, obviously do the follow-up, because accountability is everything with delegation. And kind of when you start to forget to do that kind of follow-up element, then it becomes abdication, and that's an issue. But if you are teaching people those skills as they're part of their day-to-day role, when they do step up to that next level, then actually they've already got the muscle memory starting to be built, so that when it comes to dealing with individuals within their teams, then boom, happy days. You know what? They've got the answers. Because for me, one of the strangest things that we do in business is we will promote somebody, but we don't prepare them for it well enough in advance. And we think we'll train them on the job. And as soon as you're spending time training somebody on the job that they're trying to do, fear will kick in for them, and they'll just start regressing back to the job that they did because they were comfortable, happy there, rather than progressing and moving forward and smashing out the park the new one you want them to do. Struck me as being a really interesting point when I was having this conversation.
And to jump in there, I love that. And a lot of it, what it comes down to is why I think something to take a, pull out for a second, 30,000 foot view, is why training is a piece of the whole equation, because it's a holistic approach to everything. Because a lot of times what happens is the supervisor left, something happened, you've got to throw somebody in the day because they just need a pair of keys. I thought to myself, you know what? Let's not raise anybody, even if I have to come in. So that becomes a bit of a burnout, because I come in as the general manager and I say, I don't want to throw the wrong person in. And if you can look at the whole as a holistic, the company and its systems and its structure, and you get this going, then you build the farm league. And in building the farm league is what I love, Kieron. And like it's an advantage that mom and pops don't always have. But what's great about a fast growing company that I had an advantage that I loved was you got to show people the progression was, we're going to get this GM up and out and on to the next. And you can do new store openings where you take somebody over. And so there's ways of testing people with things like that. Grab a great cashier and say, you're going to come over when we open up the next location. You're just going to be a cashier. We're going to bring you back. But you started to plant these seeds that they feel the power. So I would say to anybody listening, if you're growing, do that. If you're not, and you're trying to work on your business, make sure everybody knows what everybody's role is to a degree that makes sense, so that they can see what their job would be and start to learn it. It's about also saying, when you're brilliantly pre-training them on the skills, you're actually showing them what the job responsibility is as well. And it's about, do I actually want to do that? Right? As much as you can. It's like we say, right? And going back to the Burnt Chef for one, I don't know if they say this, but probably go work in a kitchen before you go to cooking school, chef school, if you can. And like for a little bit, before you think your whole career is going to be that, actually go prep for a month, because that's going to be a big piece of it. And do you actually enjoy that? So again, as much as you can precede and look at that is great, but to be able to do that, then we have to make sure the whole organization's on board. So, you're not constantly a revolving door.
Yeah, when I was thinking about this chat, I was thinking about training when I was kind of way to supervisor level, and the way it worked when I was at that level and I was in hotels was we always had a job buddy. We always had someone who'd been there for years. We'd spend time training with them, and you'd have a mentor to see you through, and then you wouldn't leave a position probably for 2 years. And there was almost a stigma, wasn't there, around CVs? Now, if you'd been there less than 2 years, you weren't ready to get the next job, and then you'd work your way up and you'd build those foundations with someone, you'd have a go yourself, and then you'd get to the next stage. Now, because of the turnover, we don't have those people in jobs for that length of time. It means we have to replace that old school buddy mentor system, that foundation, with something that can provide that for people to get them ready for the next stage, doesn't it? Because if we don't, that's where we get these positions where people are going into senior positions and they're then starting to struggle because they've been fast-tracked through the program for the benefit of the business, no one else. Kieron, this must be something you're seeing with Otolo time after time, right? Because I know when I've done the mentor bits for you guys, it definitely comes up a lot how there's not that infrastructure in place in businesses.
Yeah, and I guess for me, it kind of comes down to we need to shift our mindset. And I think Julia kind of touched on it, where she talked about the fact that we might only have people with us in our businesses for 6 months, 12 months. And I think if we accept that, then we can really make sure that that 6-12 months is the best sort of chapter in their book, and it becomes really quite colourful and exciting and fun. And when they're telling their stories about this business that they were a part of, then you know what, they smile a lot, and that for us is absolutely the key. But I think if we're not paying attention to this, and if we're not sort of seeing these moments when they are looking at making a change, and rather than actually just help maybe potentially aid that, and that feels really bold on a conversation where we're talking about retaining people, at some point you just have to accept the fact that they're going to walk away from your business. And I want them to walk away from my business with a warm feeling in their heart that says when the opportunity becomes available, and I think, Jason, you touched on it, that we're going to prepare them to be a GM, but we might not have the position for them to be a GM. So maybe they go and do it somewhere else. But when they're ready to come back to us as a GM in our business, then you know what? They've already got that culture. They've already got that energy, that vibe, that feel. Everything is ingrained in them. So they come back walking through our doors. They're ready to rock. And then they start to make a real difference.
Yeah, and Julian has just put in the comments about Jason said about human resources being about humans, and Simon Sinek says soft skills should be referred to as human skills. And I guess this goes back, Jason, to the training element and personalization. Is there has to be some form of personalization moving forwards, because people aren't the same, are they? So it has to be built into your training in some way, shape or form.
Yeah,
I
it's funny.
don't like the word. Sorry, it's the word soft skills. It irks me, Jason.
Does it?
When you hear that?
It's funny it's to me, it doesn't irk me as much. And the reason being, I don't know what to call it. I just want somebody to call it something. So we're talking about where we're going, and human skills feels a little bit, Simon Sinek is right. If there's two of us sitting in a room, it's me or Simon Sinek, go with Simon Sinek, listen to him. And cause I do. Yeah. And maybe we need a better term than soft skills. Human skills, to me, it just felt like somebody wrote it on the board in a corporate speak, and it became the next thing that was passed down in the seminar. And so I'm not stuck to, I would probably say this, and to push back is, here's the greatest thing that we're going to teach you in soft skills. Don't give a fuck about what we're calling it. Are we all talking about that thing? Like, we don't need to be so precious about any of this stuff. We're all weird. We're all a little screwed up. That's the general philosophy of everything that I'll do. Yep, we're all weird. We're all a little screwed up. Let's disarm the expectation. Let's disarm, let's put down the gun or the theoretical battles, right? And yeah. And just talk as humans and listen to each other where it comes into it. So back to soft skills or that, it's sort of like, as long as we know what we're talking about, let's call it a letter. Let's just assign it something. But at the end of the day, empathy skills, right? But empathy is communication skills and all of this that comes together. Well, I do have the floor real quickly, though. Something that's been on my mind that does still hold into this thought is when we're talking about personalized learning, and a lot of what Julia touched on, and all that's going on, and getting into the accessibility of learning, different things, human nature, still comes down to the story. What am I hearing of a story that somebody went through that I can relate to, that it lands? And I'll always go back to, give me a story on paper far more than some flashy thing in front of me on video. Hopefully you can do both. And that's why we're really big on interviewing people and hearing their story over at Arrow Up and converting that to courses. In the personability, and what I'm trying to kind of tie all this together is the idea that the stories can change a little bit on who the character is as well, and how somebody sees themselves in the story and the narration. And that's an opportunity for personalizing something. And so going back to the holistic approach again, we need to train people, but we also need to free up our leaders to be able to spend time with them. Exactly what Julia's doing coming from outside and Kieron's talking about, I know you do, Scott, is getting in and building the systems around so that these leaders can actually build a relationship. And the number one recommendation from young supervisors, 18 to 20 to 30, whatever, that we interviewed was build a relationship. And so we have to build the structure so that they can actually spend the time with them. And then you can listen to what's important to them and share a version of the story that lands with their disc, their Myers-Briggs, their way that you think they learn and hear. And so what I'm really excited to put a bow on this, I love the evolution. I think Julie is so spot on in going videos. We do that as well. I'm a little worried that AI built courses is a lot of reading so that you can speak in 100 languages. And I don't want to mix accessibility, that we converted this to 1,000 languages so it was accessible, but it's so much reading still versus train, but try to get people to communicate with themselves, try to get the information in a way that somebody connects with their story and the story they're listening to.
Just adding on to that, Jason, completely agree with what you're saying here in terms of how we can create more personalized experiences here. And I think something that we're really finding in our testing is that people would much rather see their quirky, bar manager telling them about how to speak to customers, or if we're talking about soft skills, the word here, how to greet someone, or like how much more do you learn from seeing your quirky bar manager tell you, like, say, what's up, everyone? Welcome to you understand the culture and the vibe of the place that you're working in by the video, by seeing someone doing it. So even if your amazing quirky bar manager has left, in 6 months' time, if you have a video of that, you've still got that kind of culture and that kind of vibe that you're trying to create. So, it goes both ways, especially with people who learn differently and are also non-native English speakers. Like if you have, and so many trainings are still like this, as you said, like a PowerPoint. If someone's reading a PowerPoint and it says remember to greet someone when they walk in, are you working in a fine dining restaurant? Do you know how to greet them in that respect? Or are you working in a funky little cafe that you high five everyone that comes in? So when they say a picture speaks, 1,000 words, how much does a video speak? So we're really seeing that people are much more engaged with seeing people, that whether it's people that they know, or whether it's their a manager, whether it's one of the team members speaking on the videos. We found that's way more authentic, and people are way preferring that than the old outdated versions of someone standing behind a white wall and holding pictures of knives up, if we're talking about safety training or something. But yeah, we're really finding video is helping, and yeah, it's how we're reaching new engagement levels with our employees.
And to turn it over, not to hold, but to follow on that real quickly. So for anybody listening, if you have a great quirky bar manager or anybody that emulates the culture, get them on video. Get them, capture it. You will figure out what to do with it. But when you know that you have people who bottle the secret sauce and are the culture keepers, as we would call them, engage them, activate them, record them. You could figure it out as we move along, because that is a scalable tool that you get to have. And then other people will come in. It's sharing, it's blending, all of that. And we figured that out with anti-harassment training. Was everyone was like, I want to do in person because you're having these real stories. I go, great. Let me tell you something that I love is we captured some incredible roundtables where people just learned together. And when you watch somebody learn together, I'm like, we caught it. So we've got it, and we can scale it and share it. And it's not taking away, it's additive. It's not taking away, it's not the only thing, but we've got something, we caught it, it's scalable, we're using it, we think you should include it in what you're doing. So that's something I would say is document them, because it's great. You're absolutely right, Julia.
Julia, can I ask, how do you persuade people to get involved in making those videos? Because so I'm in a WhatsApp group with some marketing folks, and they were asking, how do we get people to kind of make TikToks for us without making them like, you will make TikToks for us and tell people their business is great? How do you inspire them to kind of say, come and get involved, be bold, be brave, and we're going to put you on video? Because that bartender may well be an amazing bartender, the host may well be stunning, but when you say here's a camera, the fear kicks in a little bit. How are you getting them on board?
Yeah, I completely see that point. And obviously we've had obviously many, situations where you've got this incredible person that's such a character and has so much knowledge to share and has been working at a business for, I don't know, the last 10 years. And they're like, absolutely not. I'm nowhere getting on camera. And like, of course you're always going to have that. Everyone, not everyone loves being on camera, but we are finding that it is sort of tying into the fact that by 2024, a third of the workforce are going to be Gen Z. Gen Z are on their phones 7 hours a day. I think I saw that the Propel Hospitality event it's 7 hours a day that people spend on their phones, which is absolutely crazy. And that's like the bare minimum. Like this new generation of in the future of the workforce spend their whole times on their phones, and they spend their whole times on their days on TikTok, on Instagram Reels. And we're kind of finding that, speaking to some of our pilot customers, depending obviously how big they are, that there's always someone that is a little TikTok whiz or is really good at Reels, or, could be persuaded if you say, you've got such good charisma, you've got a great, you're very bubbly, like how about trying out these videos? But what we're really finding as well is in the authenticity of it is we're not producing like cinematic videos that are going to be, shared on a cinematic. It's almost funnier if you have like a little slip up of someone like going, oh, like didn't mean to do that, or like it's more authentic if you have someone that's like, oh, okay, sorry, okay, here I am making this cocktail or something, and it kind of makes people a bit more comfortable, I guess, if it's not a perfect immaculate video. And obviously this will differ, as we scale with, as if we bring on like larger customers, but we've got this niche of like, small chains, and we haven't really found, well, as I said, we've found a couple that were like, absolutely, it won't get on camera, but there will always be, as we found so far, someone that is willing to. And we keep finding day by day that there's actual TikTok stars in some of these businesses, because it is the generation that do spend all their day on CapCut and making videos. And if you can tie it into, you don't have to work 1 hour to the end of the shift, but you need to spend 1 hour making this video, then someone's of course going to, well, not, whoever is more keen to create a video or not, but, you're still going to get paid for it and you get to do something creative. So maybe you actually want a future in marketing. Maybe you actually want a future in social media. If you get the opportunity to also incorporate that into a job that you're doing, we found that most people would kind of jump at it. But of course, there's always going to be some people that aren't keen to get on the videos. But as we're finding, we're finding always one. And as we sort of grow within the business, we want people to see that the videos, as I said, aren't cinematic experiences. They're more authentic, and that's how people will then be encouraged to get in front of the camera as well.
Myself and Jason have a mutual friend who would say, be uncomfortable. And we go on calls every Wednesday and Friday and get told exactly the same. So I think one of the things that comes through from what all three of you have said there is authenticity is key, isn't it? And I think when we look at the modern workforce and the modern generation, they want that authenticity. They expect it when they're on social media and they're looking at accounts. They're now starting to buy from people who are more authentic. And I think that bit that you were saying, Jules, about training being a bit raw, showing raw emotions, showing slip-ups, showing that people aren't perfect, takes over the fancy jingle music and the curated videos, because people see and buy into it much more, don't they? And I guess, Kieron, what that would bring me to say is, and back to the Sean Walchef here, is that everyone has a smartphone in the store, in the pocket, and everyone has a story to tell. Our L&D managers of the future, should that title be changed to content creators? Because it feels to me like we are now in a position where these people should be around our businesses, just grabbing content and grabbing gems that they can then put onto platforms to show their teams how things should be done. So are we changing the job titles in the future?
I think if I went and said to a lot of my L&D friends that you're going to have a new job title as content manager, that they might have a slight rebellion against it. But The honest answer is every person in your business is a content creator. That is just a fact. Jules has nailed it. She's talked about that. You've got to be on that, and everybody's got to be out there kind of doing their bit. And I think if the L&D team are out there kind of catching those kind of authentic stories and those actual real moments, and then sharing them in a way that is built to it's built to develop, it's built to prove that things when they go well can be amazing, but also it's not about kind of making somebody look and feel bad. I think if we're in a business where in hospitality where we're not kind of setting people up for success and setting them up to feel like their very favorite version of themselves, then we're doing it wrong, is the honest answer. Hospitality is about warmth, it's about care, it's about kind of giving people that opportunity. So L&D teams should be out there with their cameras, and you don't need a Sony A7 Mark III to go out there and get some great content. You've got an iPhone in your pocket, everybody's got it. Go out there and just pick it up and ask some questions. And I think the more you do that, then the more the people within the business, the more the team members within the business will become accustomed to it and become adept to it, and they'll know this is just part of what we do. This is just part of our culture. So we've all got something to share. And I think once you can tell people and make them feel like they've all got something to add to the conversation, and I think we think about kind of culture fit, but it's really about culture add. And we all want to make sure that everybody's adding to the culture of our business and everybody feels like they're empowered to do that. Then boom, happy bloody days. They're all on board.
And you're absolutely right. What you said was make sure that they are the best version of themselves. So check out the lighting, right? When you pull the phone out, think of it yourself. Is the window in a good place that it shines a nice little light? You can always do that. Are you sitting under an office fluorescent in the office that an awful one in the office that no one's going to want anyone to see? So be mindful of that, because people want the best version of themselves. That's why Snapchat and filters are so big. So Kieron, 100%, we want everyone to think about that they want to set everybody up to be the best version of themselves.
And it's small stuff, isn't it? Like, I'm a glasses wearer, so a ring light is a curse for me. A ring light is a curse for a man who wears glasses, because I'll look straight at it, and all you're going to see is this little ring that just accentuates the bags around my eyes, because life's hard and getting old. I don't need that in my life. So just learn some basic skills around what lighting looks like. YouTube is a really powerful tool. I've learned a lot of stuff on YouTube. I've not learned some stuff on there as well, as I tried to drill through a wall and ended up going through a radiator pipe. But I've learned some really useful stuff around content creation, like kind of put the lighting just to the side and just have it kind of coming across, so it's not just reflecting in those specs. It's all really small, simple stuff, but it's stuff that has a huge impact on the person who you're asking to share of themselves. That's, for me, is really
sound matters. All of these things it's not that much. Get a little kit, get a little this, take care of it. It matters. It makes a difference.
Well, it's no secret, is it, why TikTok and YouTube, which lead with video first, has now become the most used search engine in the world, and it's overtaken the written form, which is Google, which I guess, Jules, it brings me to the next point in terms of speed. So we write content every day when we're on social media, and we do it in short form, and it's short and it's snappy, but it's regular and it's consistent. Is there something to be said about how training now needs to be more often, shorter, quicker, and more agile, in terms of those people who are the quirky guys can make a video, upload it onto a training platform, and boom, it's in front of your people, and it's a constant update of information that's easily to digest over doing a 1 week module or a 2 hour module? Or is that where training needs to go now, in terms of playing to the minds of how people are using everyday life?
100%. You've absolutely hit the nail on the head. Everything has to be more efficient right now. So micro-learning is the future of learning. People have shorter attention spans now. People are used to mindlessly scrolling on videos all day. And again, you can't take it back and say, actually, go and read that textbook again. Like, this is how people engage with information. So we can't tell people to do other things differently now. We have to adapt to short form content. That really is the future of learning, is the future of education. At the end of the day, people are busy, and especially in the hospitality industry, such high turnover. People are constantly struggling. People are constantly taking over people's, doing double shifts and whatnot. There's always something to be doing in the hospitality industry. So time is precious. training can be made a lot more efficient, a lot quicker, and we want to encourage this continuous learning. So what we're trying to do with the whole engagement piece is how can we engage people to want to come back and say, actually, I'm enjoying this learning. So how can we get people to come back and actually want to spend a quick 3 minutes on their phone doing their course and then go back to their daily duties and then come back and do another 5 minutes? Like the short and sharp and snappy little learning bite-sized bits are proven to engage people, and people retain the information more, rather than saying, right, everybody in our whole restaurant chain, all the area managers, let's say there's 15 of them, we're going to pay for you all to come down for a whole weekend to then learn about our new menu. And then we're going to send you all back. And then the next week, you're going to be training your man. Like, it's so inefficient, and people zone out, as you say, when people are just staring at you, taking you through slides for 2 days on like the new menu. That is not engaging at all. So if we turn things into short form micro learning, if we make them engaging, if we also find ways to track it, so whether it's gamified, whether it's through quizzes, then you know that people are engaging with it, and you literally have, the not accreditation, and obviously unless it's credited, but you can show that people have done it, people have learned it, and then people are delivering on it. So absolutely, speed is absolute key, and I think as time goes on, more industries will adapt to microlearning, as they already have done in corporate. So what we're trying to do is bring it into an industry that isn't necessarily doing it, or isn't doing it well as of yet.
Scott, you touched on it before. We've been relying on the buddy system within hospitality for as long as I've been in it, and I'm 50 in January. It's a long while. So all we're doing is we're evolving the peer-to-peer learning element of life. We've always relied on peer-to-peer learning. That's just kind of key. So we're giving them the tools and the opportunities to be able to share that knowledge in a way that makes sense for them. Why wouldn't we do that? It's just logical.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jason, I think you touched on micro learning at the start, so I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on it as well. But I also, I was listening to a podcast where you were on and you were referring to Apple TV and looking at their user experience, and how important is it now to make sure that user experience or the engagement from it is at the forefront of what you're doing?
It's crucial. It's critical. It's UX. It's experience, right? We want to put as much attention into the experience of our coworkers as we do to our guests. I hadn't thought of it this way, but Steve Wynn was always famous in Vegas for building out the employee. If you walked into the employee changing rooms, commissaries, you didn't know if you were in the guest side or the employee side, because there was so much care that was put into that. I think we can do a little bit more of that. And it's hard with square footage physically, but let's just talk about what we have with digital real estate. I think it's important. And I think it really matters. So for us, as we're building out as we're making compliance cool and sexy, and we started to build our platform, we started to build somewhat of a traditional looking training system. And I stopped, and right before we started it to code, I went out and I was like, why am I reinventing the wheel? Like, I love Apple TV. I love engaging with it. I love a part of it. I can intuitively understand what's in front of me. That's what I have to deal with. That's swipe. I can look at things that are important to me. I can cherry pick the small, micro lessons. And so we went that approach, which I'm really, really happy we did. And it's great. The thing that we'll need to work on as we grow is what's linear and what can you cherry pick? Because as you get into micro learning, there's a real opportunity to make sure that you use recall, which is a scientific, backed understanding that you want to teach somebody something, but you want to ask them about that at a particular point. And so if it's a long form course, you could bring that back 30 minutes into it, what you taught them at the beginning. With these short micro trainings, you want to find the way or the time that you can actually recall, force that recall and get them to think about it, to get it to sort of land in the brain. So we're going to figure that stuff out as we grow and evolve as both the technical landscape as well as the content.
Can I ask a question on that? Sorry, because it's really interesting to me what we've talked about. And so when you look at a leader in your business and you think that person's doing really good work, that person rocks, and I like what they're doing and I like how they approach life. So if I want to know what are the learnings and what are the lessons that they're taking from, which sessions are they paying attention to? Is there, do you do this thing where like you can kind of share like playlists of learning? So I look at Jason and think, Jason's cool. I like the cut of his jib. He seems like he's doing good work. What are the lessons that he's taken to be able to get him to this point, and what can I take from those? Is that a tool? Is that an opportunity?
It's incredible, and you're writing the blue book and the playbook. You're right. It's absolutely what got them to here, which is great. That becomes a little bit of a coding side of where you've got your playlist and your Spotify. What's your playlist? Approach that we're taking now with a little lower lift is activating ambassadors and people that people are resonating with, and bringing them back to teach the lessons sort of across form, and to say, this is a philosophy of mine. And they start to build that out. But 100%, you're absolutely right. And, Julie and I both writing this down and scribbling. It's that idea of, and where does that come into the playlist approach? Because what that is trust, and let's bring it all back to trust, and who's our curator, and who's our vibe, and who's our DJs, right? Who are we looking at? Who are we reading? So I love that. And I think it's absolutely a digital roadmap, and that builds, it just makes it cool and makes it relatable.
Exactly that.
I think, when you just said to me, when you just said playlist, then it just makes me think of even some of the terminology about how we refer, and I've said it during this session, of modules suddenly becomes a playlist. And we start looking at all those things, Spotify, Apple Music, Apple TV, Netflix, and we start looking at the terminology and looking how we can make it more relevant. Some of those are the answers here, rather than probably a whole blow up of the system. Is we just have to evolve with time, Kieron, right? We have to move. The language has to change. The way we look at things has to change. It's those little things that aren't going to take much effort, but are going to have big impact on the modern workforce because of how they see life every day, right?
Well, it just makes it so much easier. If you speak a language that they speak every single day of the week, in every single kind of touch point of their life, then it resonates and it connects in such a simple way that actually, I think back to the last business I operated. I had a nightmare getting people to do compliance training. Honestly, it was hell on a stick. And it got to the point where at one point I was like, I will withhold your tips if you do not do these basic compliance tests. You've got to do it. It's just the law. And that's like, I'm getting to the point where I'm saying, I'm going to withhold tips. That's insane to me. Why would I be doing that? That's a terrible thing to do. But I was getting to that point because people were not engaged, but they weren't engaged because we weren't speaking the language that makes sense to them. The reality is I'm a rather rotund 50-year-old middle-aged man. It is what it is. If I sit and think about kind of everything and what it was when I was kind of 20 running my first business, well, nothing will ever change. I'll never evolve it, and I would lose everybody that I'm trying to take on this journey with me. So I've got to find a way of connecting. And if I want people to come with me, I've got to speak a language that makes sense to them. That's just it.
Yeah, fantastic. We've come to the hour now. So the last question I want to ask everyone is one about the future, and whether this is something that you guys are working on at the minute in your businesses, with your platforms. What trends are you seeing in other industries or coming into the industry that we're in, that you're wanting to seize the opportunity moving forwards? Jules, I'll come straight to you on this one.
Well, definitely, as we were discussing, is micro learning. That is a key one that we're seeing, and that we're obviously jumping on that trend. I would say sustainability training is something that the younger generation are actually really interested in and looking for, and they want to know more about the sustainable practices of the business that they're working in. I would say mental health support and training. I know you work very closely with the Burnt Chef. They're brilliant, and it shows, in these types of industries, mental health is often overlooked, and it's often an industry where you definitely shouldn't be overlooked because you're working long hours and don't get to go home much in certain roles. Definitely gamification we're seeing is an interesting way and route that we're exploring as to how to incentivize people to come back until we can change behavior. Continuous learning, we've touched on that tonight. and how we can actually integrate the use of AI in the future. I know it's a sort of word that everyone's using right now, but it's kind of one of those things. It's going to go there. AI is obviously not going to go anywhere soon. So it's like, how can we actually use it for good and bring value to the business using AI? But I think, the main and technology integration, obviously that works with AI, how you can integrate different platforms together and how people are adapting using different technologies. But the biggest one I would say is, because I have to keep repping Blend, is micro learning and short form video.
Perfect. Jason, over to you next.
I would say I love listening to podcasts around a couple that are all big about these huge HRIS systems where you have Microsoft and Oracle and SAP, and you've got all of them that are figuring out how to do the lifespan of an employee all the way through. It's such grand architecture. I can't go near it, but I learn really where it's going and what's happening. To me, I'm excited to see all the learning curve and the skill-based learning from beginning all the way entry to exit, and how that can sort of trickle down into very tangible, bite-sized, accessible systems that we can use on restaurants. And it's going to be interesting because I'm in the technology game, I'm in the training, I'm in the people game, but I've using technology as a tool to deliver content. But I like that everybody has its lane. So it's going to be very interesting when you have these larger systems that are covering everybody's lane versus these smaller systems where Blend doesn't have to worry about becoming all of a sudden a scheduling app and this app and where it's got to go. So I like seeing how the big dogs are doing it, because I like how they're doing the arc. I just want to figure out a way that we can play to the smaller teams and the independents, have our lanes that really work well together, API integrations, hands off. So it's smooth, but everyone gets to really focus on what they do and drive in. You don't feel like you're in just this big cookie cutter system, because I like when the personality of each tech comes to the table, as long as they play well together.
Fantastic. And Kieron, last over to you.
Yeah, I guess when I look at life from through the filter of a mentor, and I think that we are so early in the journey of mentoring. And I think that kind of the shift of perception around what being a mentor is and looks like is definitely something that's going to be hugely impactful. I think there has been a kind of a view that it's kind of for people who are kind of at the top of their game, who have been absolutely kicking ass. They've kind of been around for a few years. No, a mentor can be anybody and everybody. I sit in a room and I say every person in every room could be a mentor to somebody. And I think there's so much opportunity there. You know, I was at an event last week talking about the menopause and kind of perimenopause and menstrual health. And I think there is, even around that subject, there is a huge amount of opportunity for mentoring for women who are going through that, and for men who are struggling to understand it. You know, kind of Jason touched on it earlier, kind of empathy skills and teaching people those empathy lessons. Well, that's kind of part of the subject of how to deal with those particular issues, to be fair, as a man, if I'm honest with you. So I'm really excited by the different ways in which we look at mentoring. And Julia, you talked about AI. We're chatting, working with the folks at UDA, and we're thinking about how we can streamline the process of mentoring to make it as simple and as effective as possible. Because for me, if it's difficult, then that people just walk away and they'll step back and they'll go and do something else. We've got to simplify it. We've got to speak to people where they are. We've got to speak to people in the places that make sense to them. So we're going to be using AI to be able to do that. Scares me a little bit. I've got the fear of AI. I mean, I don't trust Elon Musk for toffee, but he's probably not wrong. There's going to be some problems further down the line, but that's just my natural cynicism, probably my age. But we're going to use it and we're going to put it into action. We're going to put it into play and see how it can actually help, people with their experience. And that's, I guess, when AI is done for that and used in that way, it can be hugely impactful in all the right ways.
This has honestly been, for me, sitting here listening to you three, you were definitely the first pick for a reason. And I've learned so much, and I can see in the comments that people have said the same. And there's so many takeaways, and we haven't even asked all the questions that we'd prepared before. So it feels like there might be a part 2 coming up here. But for those people who listened and want a piece and want to know more about you guys, where's the best place to find you? Everyone's tagged in on LinkedIn. Jason, you first.
We love LinkedIn. Go in there, and then you can reach out to me directly, jason@arrowuptraining.com.
Thank you, Jules.
Same. LinkedIn is a great place to meet us. We're down as We Are Blend on LinkedIn. Any of us, Helen, Jonah, or myself will respond, or Julia Smith at Blend. Add me on LinkedIn. Also, we have Instagram and TikTok. So add us and follow.
Perfect. And Kieron?
A couple of versions, really. All of my personal stuff is The Boy Bailey Speaks. Clearly, as we've demonstrated, I'm a man who likes to chat. So all of my social, you'll find me The Boy Bailey Speaks. But for Otolo, it's myotolo.com or Kieron at myotolo.com. Get in touch. If you're sitting there thinking, I either want to mentor or want to be a mentor, come and get involved, because there are so many people out there who want that help and support. And you know what? I think the people on this call tonight have just demonstrated the knowledge and the power that's available here is huge. And the will to make this industry the best it can possibly be, I'm all on board with that.
Perfect. Kieron, Jules, Jason, thank you very much. What an amazing chat. And this is going out on audio version as well for people to listen back to. And yeah, hopefully we can do a part 2 after. So thank you very much.
I guess this is where we introduce the lead singer, Scot Turner. Thank you for bringing us together, all that you're doing, contributing, all of the amazing posts that you're doing, newsletters you're sending out, to find you on LinkedIn and to listen to you. So you are an incredible influencer and influence in my life. So thank you for shepherding this.
We love you, Scott.
Thank you. I actually thought you were going to ask me to sing then, which would have been a really bad ending to this show. So
I mean, what's your go-to karaoke, Scott? I know you've got to go to karaoke.
Oh, in my days. I won't tell you my song though. Thanks, guys.
You've been listening to Hospitality Huddles, where hospitality meets conversation one huddle at a time. Hospitality Huddles is brought to you in partnership with Auden Hospitality. Visit the website at www.audenhospitality.com. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.